All right, in this explainer, we're going to do a deep dive, a forensic analysis of something called the escalation ladder. Now, this isn't a social engineering attack that targets your computer. No, it targets your brain's operating system and its deep, deep need to be consistent. I mean, it's just an absurd request, right? Your internal alarm bells would be going off like crazy. The whole interaction would be over before it even started. It would be an easy, almost instinctive no.
So, this is the big question, isn't it? This is the paradox we're here to unpack. How does that first, totally logical no somehow morph into a final catastrophic yes? Well, the answer lies in a really carefully crafted process, one that's designed to bypass your logic completely, using your own good nature as the key.
You see, in the world of what some experts call compliance hunters, people who professionally engineer agreement, your desire to be helpful isn't seen as a character strength. It's seen as an exploitable pattern. They've literally mapped the human need for cooperation and turned it into an attack plan.
All right, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll look at the politeness paradox, then the identity anchoring trap. After that, the anatomy of the escalation itself. Then we'll cover hacking your consistency engine, the compartmentalized defense, and finally, we'll talk about why consistency is a trap.
Okay, let's get one thing straight right from the start. Victims of this aren't targeted because they're weak or foolish. Not at all. They're targeted because their politeness comes from a very predictable biological drive to be coherent. And this system, well, it weaponizes that instinct.
Now this slide is really interesting because it shows you the switch. On the left, you've got virtues we're all taught are good things. But in the hands of one of these compliance hunters, politeness just becomes a predictable trigger for saying yes. And your natural desire for coherence, to make sure your actions line up with your words, that becomes a trap that forces you to stand by a past decision even when all the new information is screaming at you to back out. They are literally banking on you ignoring the red flags just to avoid the discomfort of being inconsistent. So, let's move on and see how this actually builds. This next part is where the scammer creates the psychological environment for the whole thing. It's all about locking you into a new, temporary identity without you ever realizing it's happening.
So, identity anchoring. This is the core of the whole exploit. The second you agree to a tiny, completely harmless request, like giving someone the time or offering a simple opinion, you've just made what's called a micro-commitment. And your brain, well, it subconsciously logs this interaction and it files you under a new identity, the helpful person in this situation. And what do helpful people do? Well, they help. That single, tiny favor basically drops your natural security skepticism down to almost zero. In this chart, it shows you the impact perfectly. On the left, if someone just walks up with a big request out of the blue, our brain is 95% skeptical. That's our default security setting. But look what happens on the right. After just one of those tiny micro-commitments, our state flips. Your brain, which is now operating under the helper identity, shifts to 90% consideration. The cognitive momentum has started, and that's exactly what the scammer is counting on. And this is so important to understand. From that very first yes, you are no longer in a simple conversation. You have stepped into a compliance funnel. It's a structured process designed to lead you to one and only one outcome. The goal is what experts call incremental liquidation. It's a step-by-step process of getting you to give up more and more and more until you're wiring away your life savings to protect an identity that you literally just took on 30 minutes ago.
Okay, so let's put on our analyst hats here. We're going to treat this like we're profiling a behavioral virus. We're going to walk through this escalation ladder rung by rung just to see the clinical precision of how this system works.
The whole system is built on 4 very distinct phases, and each one is designed to build on the one before it. Micro-engagement, that's just to get you to stop. Initial commitment, to get you to participate. Sequential upselling, to raise the stakes. And finally, extraction. Let's break down each one.
Phase 1. This is all about just breaking your stride, your momentum. The scammer will start with a super simple question like, hey, do you like living in this city? Honestly, they don't care about your answer. What they're looking for is a compliance marker. That's the signal that you're willing to engage. That's the moment you stop being a stranger on the street and start being a potential target.
Okay, this next phase, this is the hook. It's a small public act, like signing a petition or maybe downloading an app. This can be the psychological point of no return, because by taking a physical action, your brain's classification of you changes. You're no longer just talking to a stranger. You are now officially a participant. You're invested.
So now that you're a participant, suddenly a problem pops up out of nowhere. And because you already signed that petition or downloaded that app, you are presented as the one unique person who can solve it. This is the sequential upselling phase. The requests start getting bigger, but the logic always circles back to that first thing you did. Well, you already did X, so it only makes sense for you to do Y. And this just keeps going until the extraction phase, the demand for the grand yes, the final wire transfer, the login credentials. It's made to feel like the only logical conclusion to the journey you've been on.
So, that's the how. But why is this system so devastatingly effective? The answer isn't really in sociology. It's deep in our biology. This is an exploit that targets the fundamental wiring of our brains.
Okay, so there's this thing called self-perception theory, and it basically says this. We don't always know our own attitudes directly. Instead, we often figure them out by watching our own actions, just like an outsider would. So when your brain observes you saying yes multiple times to this person, it concludes, I am acting like a helpful, trusting person, therefore I must be a helpful, trusting person in this context. Your own yes becomes the proof your brain needs to justify the next yes.
And really, what's happening here is a fight inside your own head. The scammer's entire goal is to activate and then keep you locked in that helper identity, which is run by your emotional brain. This identity, it's motivated by being a good person, and it wants coherence more than anything else. So from this perspective, saying no feels totally illogical and inconsistent with what you've already done. And this successfully keeps your skeptic identity, your analytical brain, the one that runs on data and risk assessment, dormant and offline. And the way the scammer does this is by acting as an identity mirror. They constantly reinforce your role with phrases like, oh, thank you, you're a lifesaver, or you're such a good person. This social validation gives you little hits of dopamine, which is the brain's reward chemical. And that feeling of being helpful literally becomes more powerful than the alarm bells your own security instincts might be trying to ring. They're not hacking your computer, they are hacking your moral compass.
All right, we've dissected the attack. Now, let's talk defense. And this isn't about being less polite, it's about being more strategic. The solution is a concrete mental protocol, one that empowers you to take back control.
The number one weapon in your arsenal is what we call the independent event rule. This is a conscious choice, a mental program you have to run. You have to train yourself to treat every single new request as if the person just materialized out of thin air and asked it for the very first time. By compartmentalizing each request, you break that chain of consistency that the scammer is relying on. You reset the board to zero with every new ask.
And to make this practical, here is the escalation exit script. This gives you the exact words to use to disengage safely and politely. You start by acknowledging the first request. This validates that yes, you are being helpful. Then you state your policy. This is you basically invoking the independent event rule. Then you set a firm, non-negotiable boundary, and finally, you conclude the interaction. Now, a legitimate professional will respect this boundary. A scammer, they'll immediately try to shame you. I thought you were a good person. And that right there is your final confirmation that you're in a funnel. Now, like any skill, this takes a little practice. You've got to build up that refusal muscle memory with some daily exercises. Say no to something small and low stakes. Practice your exit script in a mirror so it feels natural when you have to use it. And always remember this crucial fact. Consistency is not a debt. You do not owe a stranger your coherence. You are allowed to change your mind. So this all brings us to the single most powerful takeaway from this whole breakdown. We need to install a new default setting in our mental operating system, a mantra that acts like a firewall against this exact kind of psychological exploit.
This is it. This is the new mental model you need to adopt. Really internalize it. My previous yes does not buy a future yes. I evaluate every request as if it's the first. And most importantly, I am allowed to stop at any step. This mantra, this is your shield.
So, here's the bottom line. When you're dealing with strangers who are asking you for things, coherence is not a virtue, it's a liability. Your desire to be a consistent person is the very thing that can be used against you. Remember that, and you'll be able to spot the ladder before you ever take that first step.